All right, family, welcome back to the second installment in the Hustlers NBA series through the Boardroom Johnson Executive Series, man. On the second episode, man, we're going to get into the chain of command. We're going to do another case study review on a video, another video by Yo Gotti, and we'll go into another excerpt from one of my books, and we're going to talk about it, man. Let's get into this. Let's get into the video then.
For me, like, I knew I wanted to own my master's, period. I already knew that. But I still wanted to just confirm the situation with Jay. So I went over his house and asked his opinion. Like, look, this is the situation. You know what I mean? They trying to give me a whole lot of money. Because the way my situation was, either I had to buy them out or they had to buy me out. You know what I'm saying? So I could have just took the money, which was a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? So, and I just threw that out to Jay, like, yo, they talking about giving me this here or that, or I can put up the money myself and buy it back. You know what I'm saying? So he was like, you know, what we talking about? Like, yo, got it. Like, if you got the paper, why wouldn't you buy it back? So, you know, that was the advice from Ho. So,
and it's also believing in yourself, right? And your own business abilities.
yeah, and his assets is then.
All right, man, that was a good one, man. Yo Gotti was going in about a business decision that he had to make. He tapped into his into who eventually became his boss, but at the time, one of his mentors, and one of my muses, Jay-Z, Hove, before he decided to make the decision. Of course, he could have made a decision on his own, but the fact that he was humble enough with himself to seek advice from somebody who had more experience, man, says a lot about him. So once again, I'm gonna get into another piece out of one of my books, man. The OG Boardroom Johnson, the first installment within the series, OG Boardroom Johnson, from CCE to CEO. So I'm gonna read a paragraph from, I believe this is chapter 6 on the chain of command. And it states that a well-functioning chain of command isn't rigid, it's responsive. In war and in business, there are moments when information from the ground has to move up quickly, and decisions from the top have to be communicated with clarity. That means everyone in the chain has to be both a leader and a messenger. You don't just give orders, you deliver insight. You don't just pass up problems, you provide context. And when necessary, you escalate without ego and delegate without fear. And that's what we just seen from what Yo Gotti was just speaking on, of what decision he should make within his business deal. Like he said, it was either he was going to have to buy himself out, or they was going to have to buy him out. But one way or another, he knew that he had a different vision in his mind for where he wanted to take himself in his career. And he was at that stage, he was prepared to make that next move. It just was he didn't understand. He wanted more clarity. I'm not going to say he didn't understand. He wanted more clarity on whether or not which business move would be better or the best for him within the situation. And he went and he tapped somebody in his upline, which was Hove, who of course has made very large scale business deals, especially in the music world. And also he wasn't just a boss or a rapper within the business world. He was both. He was a rapper boss. So he understood the music business side of the music business, not just the entertainment business side of the music business, which is what the entertaining portion of the music business, which is part of a larger business known as the entertainment business. And a lot of people lose foresight or lose sight of that and the importance of it. And they they put the entertainment portion of it above the business portion of it. And we see that a lot. We've just seen it in the news with the Pooh Shiesty situation with Gucci. We've seen it again with Gucci again, with the situation with him making his little statements in that verses with Jeezy, just showing, you know, a mindset thing. But at the end of the day, what I feel like with Gucci, he played chess. He understood because he was a CEO. He a CEO too. Is that with the whole verses thing and him saying what he's saying, he understood he's selling the image because he still actively raps. At that time, Jeezy wasn't really actively rapping. He was rapping, but he wasn't really actively rapping. So he was more transitioning into his strictly business side. And if he wanted or decided to, he would come back into rapping. His business was no longer the entertainment business. His business was real estate and all the other stuff that he has going on throughout the cities. I think I just watched a video earlier with him talking about his son, and his son was so infatuated with a rapper or whoever the person was, and they had all these chains, and he was like, son, that's cool, but don't forget that we have 40 buildings. So, you know, he teaching his son to never lose sight of what it is that you have going on, trying to aggrandize what somebody else has going on. You know, you got to tend to your garden first. So he got so caught up in the glitz and the glam of, you know, this is what the internet teaches us, or what the internet shows us is, you know, it's flashy, it's showy. The internet is the new streets. So, for everybody who coming from the streets or was in the streets, not the new streets, but the old streets, we already know what it was. It was a fashion statement. It was flashy. It was glitz. It was glam, but it was really smoke and mirrors because it looked one way, but it really wasn't if you think about it. When you run it back in your mind. So it's easy to get to be persuaded by, a piece of glitter thinking it's gold. So, and I like the fact that he kept him grounded with the statement, that's cool and everything, but never forget that we own 40 buildings, which one building alone had more intrinsic value and regular value than whoever's chain it was, no matter how much that chain was. They could have said, hey, this is a $30,000 chain. Well, you don't really have to get into those numbers to speak for itself. It's real estate. So that was majorly important and good to hear, especially seeing him pass that on down to his next generation, and putting him in that position to start understanding the value and the concept of ownership, and to not be tricked from the flash of the entertainment portion of things that's out there. So that was a major piece, man, and that was dope. I like hearing that. Of course, going back to Gotti again with making that business decision or which business decision he should have made with the dilemma that he found himself in. That was dope for him to, not rely on his own understanding, but to, reach into his network, into the people he knew, his upline, people who've done it before, people who've done it bigger, and get, some more insight and just understanding the value in that, and then understanding the power in the control portion of it too. So like now he was speaking on just then, he was speaking on, he wanted to own his masters. That was his ultimate, that was what he's learned through his experience with doing music. The power and the leverage was in the ownership portion. So if you own your masters, you will have a larger amount of control. Nipsey taught that. He taught it in his music. He taught it in everything he did. So these are important lessons to pick up. And it's not just the music business. It translates into some of everything. It don't matter what you want to do, because everybody's not out to be a rapper, or whatever the case it may be that you want to get into, man. It's important to, understand the dynamics of it, to understand the power of having a community, people that you can rely on, understanding the power of not relying on your own understanding so you don't make the mistake that'll give you an adverse effect when you could have just asked somebody else who've done it already, who've done it bigger and better at that time and have more clarity. So once again, I'd like to ask, man, for anybody who's seen this video, please engage, leave me some comments for extra information, whatever the case we want to be. We can go back and forth in the comments and add more context or whatever the case may be. Have a meeting of the minds there. We'll have a meeting of the minds within the comments. That way we could continue this conversation, man. And once again, I appreciate you for tuning into the second installment.